All right. All right. So time being 7:07, Thursday, March 11th, 2021, I'd like to call the Abington Capital Planning Committee to order. All members present, members who couldn't make the meeting, with Chris Coyle, Joe Rosas, and Tim Chapin. But everybody else is here, so thank you, everybody. And with us today, we also have the library director, Deborah Grimmett, and Henry DiCarlo, the chair of the Board of Library Trustees. So that's from our public library, and then from our fire station, our fire department, I should say, Fire Chief John Nuttall, and Fire Station Committee. Fire Station Building Committee Chairman Derek Hamadi. He's also a firefighter and paramedic for the town of Abington. So let's jump right into our agenda. First item on our agenda is to discuss proposed 5-year capital project and equipment plan with Library Director Deborah Grimmett and Henry DiCarlo, Chairman of Board of Library Trustees. Welcome, Deb and Henry.
Okay, I just got the dreaded "your internet connection is unstable" message, so hopefully I don't disappear into the ether. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. For the library, the big thing we are looking at in the next 5 years is a roof. The roof has been in the capital plan for several years. The last quote I got was a very rough quote in 2016, and at that point it was $990,000. I have not done much about getting a quote in the last few months because winter and snow and whatnot. We've talked a little bit about the idea that it makes sense might to do the library and the town hall roof at the same time. I understand that I know the town hall roof is in somewhat worse shape than the library roof, but in any event, so that in a nutshell that's the short answer for us. Henry, do you want to add anything now, or you want me to keep going?
Well, let me just sort of say that this roof protects more assets probably than any other roof in town. When you think about the value of the collection, the value of the computers, the value of the furniture in that building. And the other big buildings, such as the fire department or the DPW that have a lot of assets in them, the trucks will dry out. You can't dry out books and materials. So we have to be very cautious about this roof. And Deb, I don't want to step on what you were going to say, but we've had some issues with this roof for some time. And what we did to address that was get a contract with a roofing company who inspects it periodically and makes intermediate repairs. So we're in reasonably good shape as far as keeping it repaired, but it's older than the building's been open. It's 25 years or more old right now because it was one of the first things completed on the building before we did the finishes and moved in. So it's at its useful life ending. And there is technology today, I think, with water barriers and things like that will improve what we've lived with for these years. Deb, I hope I didn't step on what you were going to say, but
no, Alex, I can go ahead and amplify on what we think we're going to need in terms of a library roof and kind of where we've been. That fairly quickly, if you would like.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Go for it.
So basically we've had twice yearly inspections on the library roof I was looking for the beginning date this morning and couldn't find it. It's at least, I would say, back to 2006 or 2007. So it's a long time. So that has helped in terms of the maintenance of the roof. The inspections and the repairs that they find usually are not that costly. When we have had issues with the roof, it typically has been ice, water, and whatnot. So very briefly, the library has your basic shingle roof. It's not a flat roof structure. A lot of commercial buildings have flat roofs. We don't have a flat roof. We have a pitch. Could not for the life of me find the piece of paper that says exactly what the pitch is, but I mean, we all know the roof has a pitch, so it's shingled. We also have something called Edm Roof, which stands for ethylene propylene diene monomer. And that's essentially I looked up the definition. It's a chemical compound that is known for elasticity and toughness. And though that part of the roof, the EPDM part of the roof, is in the valleys. So if you are standing at the front of the library and you are looking at where the cupola is and where the higher part of the front portico is, if you look to the right and the left, and of course I'm demonstrating and you can't see, alleys going up there. And on the sides, as you head down the back of the library, in the corner where the children's story garden is going up, there's another valley there. And there's a valley on the other side that goes up over my office. And the EPDM has failed in several places. It's been fixed. We've lost shingles. We've had them replaced. The roof has, as you're looking at the front of the library, it's essentially a T. If you take the front of the library, so the meeting room, the children's room, and the entry area as the top of the T, and then you go down the stack area until the stack wings come out. So you've kind of got that center area that just kind of goes down. There's high roof there where the windows are, and I'm not even going to attempt to say the word for the windows, the clerestory windows, or clerestory, or however the heck you say it. So that's the high part of the roof, and then it comes straight down, and then there's the roof on either wing. In the worst damage we had was the winter of 2014, 2015. And what typically happens, there's a lot of snow, then the library roof has a lot of ice on it. We had icicles that went from the side on the back end of the library. We had icicles that went from the gutter to the ground, like tree trunks, and actually had to have them cut out by a tree removal company because it was not pretty. The roof was shoveled, and the valleys over the teen room, the valley over my office failed. I was at home when Henry went in to check the building, and he called me and he said, the good news is there's not a lot of damage. The bad news is I'm standing in your office draining your laptop into a trash barrel. I have a computer desk in the back of my office, which I no longer use. We now have a small portable computer desk up front because I did not want to answer the finance committee when they asked me, having had my computer and a printer destroyed once by a leaking roof, why I was still sitting in the same place. So the last few winters we have nice, that has been a blessing. We do have retrofitted heat trace cables, which we can turn on. They run on a timer and they turn off. They're not the world's most attractive things, but they do work, and they have helped when we have had ice. So in talking with the building consultants at the Board of Library Commissioners, when we start to look to go out to bid for a roof, the biggest thing we need to think about in specking is what for materials, and even more importantly than that, the installation. According to the Board of Library Commissioners, library roof failures and roof failures in general are typically caused by faulty installation. It's not so much you can get the best materials, but if the roofing crew does not do the job properly. The legend of the library roof is that there were two roofing crews on the back part of the T, so the stack area, the middle part of the library. And they were racing, which is why we have more issues with the south side of the roof, which is the side as you towards the town hall, as you stand facing the building, for those of you who don't do ordinal directions, than the north side. We have had some issues on the north side, but by and large, especially shingle failure has typically been on the south side of the building.
And
And
if I
that
may,
was
if I can
caused-
interrupt, Deb, if I can interrupt, this racing, from what we're told, was you turn up the pressure on the nail guns or the staple guns, so you can go faster. The problem is it puts them all the way through the shingles.
Yeah.
We found that out years later. We didn't find that out at the time.
Similar issue to our siding on the police station, it appears.
Oh, yeah, I can see the
So
tie back
that
from
is
my
the
kitchen window.
Almost done.
So that's the legend. And when we lost shingles, especially when the building was newer, what happened was the nails went through. So you'd have essentially, when shingles came off, you could pick them up and look at them and you could see the round hole where the nail should have been, and there was too much pressure. So the nail just kind of went through the shingle and then the shingle released. So my concern is creating specifications for this if and when we get, I'm sure it will be when there is funding for it, that will do our best to protect the town's interest, to make sure that the work is done properly. A roof is a big investment and a big project, and we don't want to spend what I think will be $1 million plus minus on a roof and have it fail. And I'm also very tired of running around inside the library with blue plastic tablecloths. We actually had the husband of a staff member in the winter of 2015 created, he's an engineer. He created a ceiling sluice method through the teen room, plastic tablecloths to run the water from where it was leaking around so that we didn't lose any books. And I'm very proud to say in that winter, which was horrible, we did not lose any books. We moved them, we flipped them, we threw them. The staff did a lot of work with those, but we didn't lose anything. So that's kind of the overview. Henry wanted to talk a little bit about solar, because we're thinking the south side of that roof with a lovely southern exposure might be a good place for some solar panels, provided that the structure can support them. So.
And I think Deb has clearly indicated that there's no question that we need a new roof here. And it's not urgent. It could be a little bit later, but there's no urgent that we do need one.
Is this a current picture?
Yes, yeah. You see the valley there that she was
Oh,
referring to.
that's what it was. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You
I
see the
was looking
valley
for.
she was referring to. I'm not sure that's Abington, Massachusetts.
No, I see. I was looking for you, Henry, in it, so I didn't see it. So.
Oh yeah, unfortunately, there's a few of those. I was there when they built it around me, I think. But what we do want to talk about is that potentially we could. Well, let me just say first, going back historically, since we built the building, really the only thing we've come to the capital planning for is in joint plan with the town office to do the parking lots over and the carpets in 25 years. I mean, it's not something that we regularly do here, but we do want to do it right. The second thing is, I think there's an opportunity here, and Scott, you may have more knowledge of this than I do, but I think there's an opportunity here to look at some solar, being able to do that, staying with your green communities initiatives and things like that. Probably the long part of the back of the building facing the south side is the opportunity to do that. There's two different surfaces there that would be in the right direction. The panels would not be aesthetically interfering with the look and feel of the library and something like that. Trustees have talked about this in the past. We have not done it in detail right now, I think, but it's worth looking into. I think we've got probably some experience with the high school looking at that same kind of a project. But building this roof properly to be able to handle that for the next 30 years or whatever it might be is the way to go in my mind. We can maybe also, find some of that solar to use to put in some electric charging stations or something. I mean, for a car. There's some opportunities here. So I just want to plant that seed. That's not necessarily part of the main project, but Might be some rebates, there might be some grants, you know.
It's worth looking into.
It's
Absolutely.
going to require some additional work. I mean, we're not certainly ready to bring this forward now, but we want to get it in the pipeline.
No, and I do get requests. People are reaching out occasionally looking for solar projects. So it's definitely something we could look into. As far as the roof goes, your first step of that is then we would want to hire an engineering firm. And we had a similar problem down in Duxbury. The roof was leaking the same way over in the library over there, and they're very big, the same sort of square footage as yours. And again, what I found it was best is we brought in an engineering firm to put the specs together for the roof, to look at the roof, to look at the flashings, what the problems were with it, and then they put a bid package together, and then they supervised the whole bidding and construction. So, we had professional oversight of the whole project from start to finish. And in the case like yours, we would look at
That
that.
sounds like a smart idea. There is a book called The Librarian on the Roof, and it's not me.
Exactly. You're not expected to deal with that stuff, and you shouldn't be. So when
I have always said that when these librarians go for their masters at Simmons, they should go across the street to Wentworth to take a couple courses, you know.
It's true.
What's the break even on the solar panels? Like, what's the time frame for that?
We have not looked into it in any kind of detail yet, Greg. This just has been something in the back of our mind. We knew we didn't want to do it on an old roof. That much we knew. So we would need to do some serious research on that. This issue just came up with the new committee and bringing it forward now. And that's why this is a couple of years down the road, I believe. This project is not one they're going to be ramped up and ready to do in 6 months or even a year, probably.
Well, typically, Greg, though, we wouldn't put anything out. We wouldn't spend any money on solar. Company will come in and they'll do it, and it's sold back to the grid. So we're going to get some sort of, whether it's a rebate or a credit, or we'll sell the credits. They become like a commodity, but a lot has to do with what are available for tax credits for these companies that do it when they're ready to do these things.
Sure. I just didn't know if it's the same thing for larger scope stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's similar than if you were doing the high school or something. It's just, they got about a 20-year lifespan, and they start decreasing slightly before that. So, on day one, they're 100%, and you're going to get 100% of the value of them in that rebate. But by year 20, they're only working at like 80% or 70 or 60% capacity. But again, it's something that we, there's I want to say it's Mass General Law 25A, which is the bidding procedure to go out and find somebody who wants to come and put solar up there. So it'll be zero cost to the town, unless we wanted to buy our own panels and then, do it that way, but it would be very expensive.
Yeah.
Yep.
So out of the 990,000, what is the actual panels versus the manpower we're paying for? The
990,000 was a number that Deb had gotten 4 years ago now, as an estimate on doing the roof. Solar was not part of that picture at that time, but we want to make sure that a roof is done that's ready to handle solar, and we would not have wanted to put solar on a roof that was failing.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to put it on your 25-year-old roof if it's going to be 20-year panels. That doesn't make any sense. So we're saying that with a new roof, it needs to be a consideration. It may prove not to be worthy, or it may prove to be something we really want to do, and it makes a lot of sense. But this is the time we need to spend that time looking into it. And I think Scott's recommendation is a solid one, that we're going to need some engineering support and some time to look into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Certainly,
mean,
we get some
just to
input from the
even see
state
this.
consultants, but,
I mean, just to see if the steel structure it will I mean, an engineer would need to determine structurally whether the steel is gonna be able to the steel beam thing and be able to handle weight of the solar. I mean, I'm thinking an engineer is a wonderful plan.
Yeah, I wouldn't go any other way. It's just, that's step one on any project like that. It's just, it saves us a lot of aggravation in the end. And what we'll do is we'll probably have them come out and look at both roofs and, you know, if we can afford it and do them both. Am I
you
correct?
see this as being a joint project with the town hall? Is that what you're
If
looking
they were
at?
built at the same time and we're both experiencing the same problems, it might be a good idea. And there may be some, you know, savings in the magnitude, the larger the project, the square foot cost goes down a little bit. So it's worth looking at and considering anyways. But like I said, step number one is we bring on an engineer to take a look at, especially your roof.
Scott, when do you think in the
I get
future?
for that pretty quickly.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you. Any other questions for Deb or Henry? All right, I'm hearing none. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, giving your update on the library and capital needs.
The only other thing I would leave it with, Alex, is that we don't see anything else coming down the road for a number of years at this point for the library as far as capital costs.
Okay.
I mean, there might be surprises, you know, a boiler you know, a heating system goes or something like that. But right now, the carpeting and the roof were the only two. We got the carpeting done last year, just in time, so nobody has walked down and says COVID. Oh, did I say that? And,
Yeah.
and the roof is the next one. And after that, I don't think there's anything more on there at this point for capital.
And did we just overhaul the HVAC over in?
Well, we've done parts of it.
Yeah, we have new fans, return air and distribution air fans as part of the recent green energy project. We've had a lot of work done on it. The air intake is significantly better than it was 2 years ago, which with COVID is a good thing. I'm feeling like, and we have fairly new compressors. They were new 3 years ago. I'm feeling pretty good with the air part of it, and knock wood, the boiler's been acting appropriately. I mean, it is the original boiler, but it does seem to be doing its thing appropriately. So yeah, I kind of think I never want to say we're in good shape with the HVAC because I'll go to work tomorrow and something will be wrong. But it's
Yep, I hear you.
I have one question that's absolutely not related to capital. So sorry. Oh, we getting rid of these Dr. Seuss books or are we keeping them?
the answer to that, the discussion for that could take the entire rest of your meeting. So I think we're gonna say that the bulk of the Dr. Seuss collection is extraordinarily appropriate and popular, and that the books that are on the Dr. Seuss list that we currently own are all presently checked out. So someone has them, and at the moment, I don't see that we're going to be doing much of anything with them. If people are borrowing them, I think that's where they're going to be for the moment. But there could be a huge discussion about that, Greg. So if you want to chat more, give me a call. But I don't think the rest of you want to do this tonight.
And I will say, Greg, growing up in Springfield, I used to walk down Mulberry Street to get to high school. So
I used to walk down, I think it was Mulberry Street in New York City. I don't know.
No, he was in Springfield. That was Mulberry Street in Springfield.
Yeah. I mean, I know, but I mean, I don't know. I can't. It blows my mind. So
Alex,
we'll have to save that for another meeting, Greg.
I just want to know where we stand with stuff like that.
thank you all for your time. I very much
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Good night, Henry.
Good night,
Awesome.
all.
Night.
Good night. All right. On to our next agenda item, very big topic, Fire Station Building Committee with Chairman Derek Hamadi and also Fire Chief John Nuttall. Thank you, John and Derek, for joining us.
Thank you.
So, I'm sure everyone's all aware that, the town, we're trying to look into getting a new fire station and stuff like that. So John, Derek's committee is to, look into how we can get a new fire station, a much needed fire station. I'll leave it to you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. For those that don't know me, my name's Derek Hamadi. I'm a firefighter paramedic here in Abington. And I'm the chairman of the Fire Station Building Committee. This has been a project that's been going on for over a couple of years already. The chief and I have been working on it for, we put a lot of time into this. And I kind of wanted to just kind of tell you where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going to be going. And I'm going to try my best to be brief so you guys can ask some questions. But back in 2019, needing to have a feasibility study done. And that started September of 2019. It took about 7 months for that study to be completed. It's a very thorough document. It's almost 300 pages long. And that being said, I have copies of them to hand out to any of you guys that need one. So if you do, please reach out and let me know. The feasibility study itself can consist of several aspects of what's been going on with our fire station in town. It had an analysis of the existing structure that we have, space needs program, response time study, site selection and analysis, and design options with projected costs. So the analysis ultimately came up, showing that the station needs of a modern fire station. We simply just outgrew the buildings. Our headquarters station was built in 1962, and our station 2 was built in 1973. They've well exceeded their life expectancy. So ultimately, we just have no more space to fit in the buildings. It's not a secret. Everybody knows that they're old buildings, and we need to start looking into building a new one, which is why ultimately today to kind of get to the next step. Space needs program, which was done by an architect during this feasibility study program. Robert Mitchell is the architect that went room by room with Chief and I, and this took hours and hours and hours to do because it's very thorough on everything that the fire department does for the town. There's a lot that's involved in everything that we have inside the buildings. And ultimately, his final report showed that a single combined fire station would adequately respond to the assessed demands for the next half century. So the goal of this would be to build something that's going to last at least 50 years, if not more, just like the buildings that we're in now, actually. So the study, again, was very, very thorough, and it came down to site analysis. It looked at several locations throughout town. Our town doesn't have a lot of large lots to put a fire station on, especially to the size that we need. Ultimately, it came down to 2 locations. There was the North Schools, and then there's a Glenowitz Way site, which is across from the high school, set back way off from a state-owned property. Ultimately, those were the 2 locations that the feasibility study found. Since Scott has come into town, he has a lot of experience and has taught me quite a lot, actually, in just a short time. He thought it was a good idea for the town to do its due diligence and reach out to see if there's whatever that could potentially be available for a fire station site. And unfortunately, nothing really came up with that. So ultimately, those 2 sites were what the committee was charged with talking about and figuring out which would be the best to go with. The probability projected cost part of the feasibility study came down to a building that would be approximately 40,000 square feet. That would be between $31 and $34 million. And that's depending on if it included the building and health department. it's a little bit of a range, but moving a couple more departments in added more square footage, which raised the cost. So since the study, our committee was formed, and we had all throughout last year, and they also did all walkthroughs of both stations that we're currently in. Our committee was actually down to just 5 people, and I want to make sure that everybody knows who they are. Wendy Happel's the secretary of the committee. It's also Roger Bodie, Jim Dabrowski, and Jared Toll, firefighter paramedic. So when we met, our first job was to figure out if the existing structures were worth fixing. And based off the study, it was a unanimous vote that a new station is needed. It's more of it's a timing, because as we wait, the longer we wait, the more expensive these are going to get. And it'd be best to do it sooner than later, because we don't want to have to spend more for a building that we could do sooner for less. The second part was to determine which site would be the best site for the fire station. Determining that, we went into the study and read through all the aspects of what was in there, and we voted to go with the Glenowitz Way site. The reason for this was because it was a centralized location, and its ability to provide more growth along with the town. As the town grew and the department grew, there was more space there to grow with. The difference in cost between the two was quite small. So it's a lot larger of a lot, centrally located in town, and it just offered more for the cost that it had. So right now, the next steps, once we decided that the site on Glenwood's Way would be the Barras, is to prepare for a full conceptual design plan. That brings us to where we are now. This would include design, plan development, soil borings, everything that goes all the way up to bidding for construction. And this is including an OPM, which is an owner project manager, somebody that we would hire to kind of run the show and then kind of work in conjunction with our committee as the project went full point. Trying to
Eric, can I interrupt?
Secure some funds to come into town meeting. Absolutely.
We're getting a feedback from you. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if there's a connection issue or something. We keep getting a feedback. At least I am. Are you folks getting it as well?
Yeah, same here.
Helicopter.
Just to double check on that. So I'm going to give you just a minute to double check your connection or an issue. You're doing an excellent job. Once in a while, we're just getting somewhat of a feedback on it.
Sure.
You want to give that a try again, or unless you need a minute?
You know, we had a similar issue with one of our, with Rich Messina. You know, Rich, he said it was his earbuds that were causing it. I don't
I'm
know.
back on now. Can you guys hear me? Any
Yeah.
feedback? You good?
Bingo.
All right, cool. So ultimately, where I left off was that our next steps now are to go. Is it back?
Yeah, it may be the Bluetooth in your earbuds, I think, Derek.
Okay.
Well, he's addressing that. Maybe he can disable those earbud Bluetooth. The reason that we chose the Glenevich Way site, and I think Derek will talk more on that in a moment, but over the North School site, because I like the North School site. I kind of thought that was going to fit well, but when we looked at the feasibility study, it really disproved the North School as a site over a couple of reasons. One was the square footage of the site itself. The building really just didn't fit adequately. And to make it fit, we were cutting a few things down, and there was absolutely no room for growth starting off. The second issue that we had were some of the three main traffic intersections along the North School, which was 58 and 139 over in that area. There was Plymouth and Birch Street, and then downstream, if you will, we had Washington and Adams Street, where we were going to be responding. I think it came up to about 58% of all of the anticipated responses were going to go down into that small triangular park area by Washington and Adams Street, and it could have bottlenecked there. So those are a few difficult long-term issues to try to fix, as well as just the site itself was rather small. The Glenevich Way site, even though that takes a little bit more site work, we also don't have to take a building down with that. That gives us ample room to grow in the future if needed. And when we exited off ultimately onto Route 18 from that site, that gave us the best response times anywhere in town. It's almost the geographic center of this town, and that worked out very well.
I'm going to share my screen. Just
Using the Glenevich Way site. Derek, I'm going to hand this back over to you if you want to try that again.
Yeah, can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, I have one question. Am I on mute or no?
Nope, I can hear you.
And I don't, maybe I could save it till the end. But the last time we spoke about this, we talked about a possible entrance or exit heading out to 18 without using Glenowitz Way. When I look at this, is that really feasible? I mean, is there?
Yeah, I think there is a way to do it. It's something that we've talked with KBA, which is Kessel Booz Associates. They're the ones that did the feasibility study for us. It would be something separate that we could try to tie in once we get the project going. But there is a way to get from that landlocked area in between the 100 Lincoln Boulevard housing and Lowe's and going through that lot of 484 Bedford Street, I believe that is.
Right here.
Acquiring that one lot would allow us to have access to go straight through there between the two. Now,
Oh, that'd be good.
that would be an added cost. So that lot there that you're looking at, that rectangular lot, whose screen is this? Is this?
This is Steve. Yeah.
Steve. So that rectangular lot we'd have to acquire that, but we're actually going to the square lot, not that rectangular lot.
Yeah. I mean, this is the area that the.
Nope, that's not where we'd be going. That's state-owned property. We'd be going to that lot right there.
Oh.
So this is some information that's important to get out there. This is a landlocked 6-acre square. It's in size and very easy to use. And the reason that it's perfect for us is because nobody else can use this lot. You'd have to gain access through that rectangular lot, which is a state-owned property. We've already had permission from the state to use it as an exit point. That's because we're a public safety municipality building. Because we're that, the state would grant us an easement to get through that. That would be an ideal place to get in and out right to Glenowitz Way. That would help with a campus style feel for the people that need to go from the town hall over to the fire station, which is something that happens quite often. But that lot there is actually a pretty significant buffer away from Glenowitz Way. You wouldn't really see the fire station from. Does that make any sense now that you see that? You could go straight from that square through the backside of Lowe's, in between the buildings, and then out to Route 18 through that 484 property.
Oh.
So that project would be, and this is, it hasn't been aired or estimated, but it'd be in the $1.5–2 million range to make that access test go there. And we could do that during or after the project.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So what we're looking for now to move forward to the next town meeting is going to be acquiring a percentage of the project to have essentially everything done all the way up until construction. We'd like to be able to go to what we'd ask for this next town meeting would allow us about a year to get. In 2022, we could say this is the exact dollar figure that's remaining for us to start construction and actually go right out to bid. Construction would start right away, as far as I have learned, and Scott can touch base on that. But that's really where we're looking at right now.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Derek.
I can up the cost. I mean, ultimately, what we asked KBA to do was give us all the numbers that we would need to have and what needed to be done all the way up to bidding right before construction. So what we would be looking for is $3.5 million. And what that would do was give us full engineering plans, full soil borings, plan development, complete construction design done. And we'd go right into construction with the next ask for the remainder of the amount that would be to finish the building.
I believe that dollar figure, the 3.5, also includes a project management firm with that as well.
Yes, so that would give us, what we really would need is an owner's project manager. That's the buffer between KBA and our committee in the town that kind of manages everything and makes sure everything's in check, follows the engineering plans. And Scott, you have a lot more experience in this than I do. I don't know everything that an OPM does, but I know that we need one to manage the project.
Well, I did several projects in Duxbury, and I was the OPM, in-house OPM. I told them that you couldn't live without one, so they believed me. But the fact is you do, Derek and the committee and the fire chief can't be expected to oversee
No.
a building project like this.
Yeah.
And so an owner's project is required by law, and that person is they're there to watch out for the town's interest. And it's a person who has, and typically it's actually another, another firm that may, also do architectural work or engineering anyways. But yeah, they're there to watch out for our best interest. They'll probably put a clerk of the works onto the project who will watch the daily operation of the project. But in the meantime, they'll assist us with everything right up to, from this point forward until the day that we commission the building. They'll make sure that the building's commissioned properly. All warranties are in place. They won't allow us, we won't pay a bill until they've reviewed it and signed off on it. And so it is on something like this, you absolutely have it. It's by law, we have to have someone anyway. So, and typically you would bring them on sooner. Like we said, I think Rick acted and he has, in his capacity, he could act, and represent the town. Like I said, I did it in-house because I could, but they were much smaller projects there. They were, $8 million projects, $9 million projects. This is a very significant project. It's going to take somebody a lot of time. And the committee does not have, the ability to do it.
Yep.
So basically what we're looking for at this point in time is we do want the money to get everything right up to when we walk into the 2022 town meeting. We'll actually have bids in hand that we'll know the exact cost of what this project's going to be. And that's what we're going to ask tomorrow at that point. So really this part of it just gets us to that, right up to that. So when we walk in, we're not guessing.
And I believe this is a similar process that when we built the high school, middle school, the OPM that they had on that project, she was awesome, Mary Mahoney, who was the project management for that. I wanted to give her a fire department uniform and hire her, but I don't think we could afford her. She kept that project going hourly, not even daily, hourly, from the beginning early process of that until really up to now. I think she left that for them ultimately, but I think they still have their fingerprints on just any final details with that project still. That was money that was extremely well spent for that project. We did a lot of meetings with them, the fire department and fire prevention learned a lot from that project. In fact, that kind of became our model that we're expecting other projects in town to adhere to. It's not always easy to do that because she was exceptional, but especially with this project that we're requesting here that we could be proposing for the town, this is a complex project. It's an absolutely needed project. The longer we wait, the cost is only going to increase. The time to do this would have been 20 years ago, but for a number of reasons, it didn't happen. So the longer we wait on this, the cost is just going to go up. And we're hearing that really across the board from all estimators on this. And it was a fairly significant pre-COVID percentage per year that any project was going to increase. And I did ask the question, well, post-COVID or currently, did they think that was going to change? And the answer in this year is still no, because all you have to do is drive through Boston and you see a massive forest of cranes. And that's driving the construction cost and the future increases on everything, because there's unlimited growth in this area of the country right now, or at least the state. And that impacts our project or any projects that we want to do in town. And the longer we wait, the more expensive these projects are going to become.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting is the last project that I did. We went from some of the projects that I did, we would get 10 to 15 bids. The last project we did, we got 3, and they were all very high. So, yeah, the price won't be going down.
Any other committee members have any questions for John or Derek regarding the fire station?
I had a question. I'm just curious why you would be putting the building department and the health department there. Is because they're running out of space at town hall?
If I can answer that for you, Derek.
Yeah. She would know better than I would.
We're getting your feedback again. I'm sorry.
Whoops.
A couple of reasons on this. This was my idea originally, and if anything, over the last year, I think it's really confirmed what we thought was going to happen. The fire department works very closely with both the building department and the Board of Health. I think the Board of Health is part of the fire department, or vice versa, over the last 9 months. Really, up until 2 hours ago, we had a great project that went on. We work seamlessly with the Board of Health, and I don't think that's going to change. If anything, Marty's on board. If anything, I think that's going to increase in the future. We're kind of hearing that from all sources as well. If we had them physically in the building with us, it would be, if you look at the plans, they're kind of in the end, but they're in the building, but separate, but we're together if need be. We kind of have some common places in between, as well as if long-term, if we get into either providing vaccinations or whatnot in small amounts, like if they have almost a clinic in their department, we can have it between our two departments, almost set up like either a doctor's office or a little mini emergency room, whereas we could treat a patient if there was an issue right then and there. We've been working seamlessly with the Board of Health on that. The building department, we also work very closely with them. Really, when it comes down to plan review for either new proposed projects in town or any other issues that we're dealing with in town, a lot of times you're seeing a joint venture of the fire, the building, and the Board of Health going to different properties, whether it's a cleanup issue, a hoarding type issue. We work very closely together. And really what's missing right now for all of us is one common area where we could lay out large building plans and we could all study them at the same time. They really don't have it in their location. We use one of the small meeting rooms at Town Hall. We certainly don't have one here. We literally use the kitchen table at the fire station, which for obvious reasons there's issues with that. So if we had basically like a plan review room that a lot of modern fire stations have now, we can take care of that, both for the fire prevention portion as well as the building portion. Those two departments, the fire prevention division of the fire department, would be adjacent to the building department. And I think that would be easier for contractors to come in if there's questions, because usually the contractors go to the building departments and then they're still going to have to go to the water department, the sewer, DPW for certain issues, and then they come up to the fire department. This would make it a lot easier for them, but really it gets all of us together on that. Now, if we are able to do this, this would also give Town Hall some considerable extra room to grow, because Scott can do what he wants, but potentially you could have the Board of Health office and the building department office vacant and available for whatever it is that they could use for future growth at Town Hall. It really is a massive bang for the buck on that.
Excellent, thank you. I know that I haven't seen the building department particularly, but I see how they're crammed into the Board of Health right now. So thank you so much. I just wanted a clarification on it. I think it's a great idea.
Great question, Ellen. Again, I know from the Board of Health's perspective, I know the health department was trying to look into possibly moving into the Frollo, so moving into the fire station would be even better.
And these ideas came pre-pandemic. I remember having meetings when I proposed this idea to Marty and also to the building department over 2 years ago. It's almost 3 years ago when we were first looking at this to see if is it something they're interested in or not. And there was massive buy-in from both departments, a massive interest on that from both departments.
Awesome. So just to clarify, just so other people watching and stuff, so the place picked, I should say, for the proposed new fire station is off of Galinowitz Way and going, so then a road pathway behind Lowe's?
So the state-owned property that is alongside Galinowitz Way, we would be granted access to put a road through that property to get to the landlocked lot that we would like to get. So you're still having the feedback?
Just a little bit.
Coming right off where the flagpole is, be a little access road, you know,
Off the road. You wouldn't be able to really see the building through that lot. It's a large lot that we'd have to go through. But the lot that we're looking at is 6 square acres. It's a significant amount of space. It's over double the size of the North School lot.
Okay. And if, Chief, I remember at the last meeting you attended with us, the proposed lot, we would need 3 acres, or is it preferably 3 acres?
Minimum 3, realistically 4 or 5.
Okay.
Which is astonishing. I never would have thought that, to be honest with you. So, you know, we learned a lot from the feasibility study on this as well. And when you really overlay the plot and the floor plan and the plot plan, because it's not just a building, you also have to include the parking as well as ample footage for the apparatus to maneuver, not just drive straight out, but, you know, to try to maneuver like that. It really doubles almost the imprint of the building. When you really start overlaying that building plan that we have, which is specific for Abington and Abington Fire's needs, it's specific for the amount of apparatus that we have, the type of apparatus, the type of call volume that we have in Abington, and then you couple all of the paved areas around that, it really increases dramatically the size of the land that you need.
Right. Thank you, Chief. All right. Any other questions? Any more input? Oh, we got Marty.
Hey, Marty.
I'm sorry. Derek, I was hoping you could speak on the habitability and safety of the other 2 buildings that we currently occupy, real quick.
So that's there's actually a very thorough part of the feasibility study that discusses that. Can everybody still hear me? We good? All right. So the buildings, they're very old, and a couple of the points that they brought out about the life safety portions of the station and are specific to the fact that when these buildings were built, cancer wasn't really discussed. It wasn't a hot topic to bring up about how firefighters interact with combustible materials. So all new modern fire stations have nothing but life safety built into them. They specifically designed sections of these new modern fire stations to keep all the bad stuff away, let us do our day-to-day operations in a clean, safe area. A lot of firefighters nowadays are getting cancer even while on the job, if not after. And that's because of the combustible materials that we do while we're out on the road on the job, as well as just backing up the apparatus into the building. The exhaust fumes that are coming off the trucks, although we have Plimo vent systems that work, they're directly in touch with our day room, which as the chief talked about earlier, this isn't just the room that we use day to day for training or eating or congregating, or we also, whenever we have meetings done in this room, and that's directly off the apparatus bay. All these new buildings have what's called a hot to cold corridor. So essentially, when you come in off the road from whatever hazard you were in, you go through a pathway that pretty much decontaminates everything until you get to the actual main part of the building. And if you look at the study, it's kind of nice how it shows how you go from the small maze that gets you to a safe area. And that area is where the chief conducts his day-to-day business, fire prevention does their day-to-day business, where the proposed health department would be, as well as the community room where we could do potential COVID testing, COVID vaccine administration. All that stuff would be separate from all the dangerous that's in the building. And that's just the dangers of the day-to-day job, keeping separate from the administration side of the building. That's not to mention that these buildings were built so long ago, there's no fire suppression systems. Means of egress aren't up to code as they should be. If you built a new modern fire station, it needs to be all sorts of fire scares, and ways to get out of the building. And then the last part is that they specifically mentioned in there, this is way before, these buildings were built way before ADA compliance was around. So right now we have a very small public area of the building, but we have a lot of times people come up to the building looking for emergency medical services. We have essentially a chair in the hallway, and that chair is in the one little public spot that we have. And the closed public bathroom we have is through non-code compliant size door today's standards, where if somebody came in with a wheelchair, there's no way they use our facilities either. There's a lot of factors that our building is not up to snuff anymore as where we could be with a more modern station.
If I could just quickly expand on that too, we've simply outgrown both buildings. Starting with the apparatus floors, the garage, if you will, on both fire stations, our apparatus are literally bumper to bumper and almost side to side. There's no room to walk around them. We're getting creative as we're trying to operate under COVID because we're operating 3 ambulances. And I have one of my older engines that we're getting rehabbed is coming back in a couple of weeks. And I'm really trying to figure where we're going to put it because we don't normally operate 3 ambulances, but because of COVID, we are. So we're getting creative, but beyond COVID, they're literally bumper to bumper. We've got about 18 inches between the apparatus and some of the wall space on some of these that we're squeezing through. We should literally have 5 to 8 feet between everything and about 8 to 10 feet behind the ambulance so we can get the stretcher out to be able to decontaminate it, clean it, just, your morning checks, get your shift checks like that. It is literally that tight. The living quarters, as Derek said, we are literally right next to, am I echoing now too? I think it's the connection for everybody. Okay, nothing's changed. There's no way to divorce the living quarters from the hazardous trucks or the coats or the equipment that we have. Now, when we go to absorb all of the products of combustion, smoke, and those hazards are on the gear until we clean them, and they're off-gassing. You can actually smell it. We had a fire last week. Station 2 is a mess right now because we're all trying to take turns washing our gear, and we only have one small gear washer and dryer, special for fire protective clothing, and we kind of wait our turn. It's not ideal, but it works. We should have a whole room for that, and that room is vented to the outside. It actually has a negative airspace to prevent any of that from getting into the living quarters. We literally hang these on a hook 5 feet away from where we're sitting because there's nowhere else to put them. Where the kitchen area is also the training area is also where we have to check some equipment. We simply have no room in either station for any of these processes. So we've outgrown it. We've talked earlier about there's no separate facilities for the different genders. We have male and female employees 24 hours a day. We don't have separate facilities. We don't have separate bunk or dorm areas for that. It's an issue. It's an issue that worries me all the time. And we've got great employees. It's never been an issue. until it occurs. And we don't want that to happen. This is going long-term for our sons and daughters that will be working in these buildings at some point. We really need to modernize the facilities to equal the reality of the department that we now have. When these buildings were built in the 1960s and early 1970s, it was not a diverse department because back then it just wasn't. They were not doing EMS back then. We didn't have an ambulance back when Station 2 was originally built. We didn't have half the hazardous materials that we have, that we deal with now. It's a completely different world and a completely different environment that we have to deal with. In our buildings, although we maintain them and we upkeep them, we've simply outgrown them both in terms of space and size, as well as the capabilities.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any further questions or any further discussions? All right.
Set.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you, Chief Nuttall. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for your committee.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll move on to next item on our agenda. Now we'll go into old business. Prioritize needs based on exigence and available free cash or borrowing ability. Sue or Scott, did you want to
We're
say
not
anything?
there yet.
All right.
Yeah, we're not, I think, we're probably a few meetings away from getting to some of that, but I think, you have school committee coming next?
Yes, I do. Yes. School department. Yes. So yeah, that's
That probably wraps it up, I'm guessing.
and water department.
Oh, yeah, and then, and then I think it's time to just caucus and look at what's been presented to you. We'll have Sonia back on then, obviously, and we'll start looking at the, the spreadsheet and the money.
Yep.
Wow.
And if you guys are, I don't know if you're interested in meeting in person in the near future or not, but it is an option.
Well, that segues right into the next agenda item. Set next meeting schedule, future discussions with additional town departments, future discussions of draft capital plans, recurring discussion. So as Scott mentioned a little bit before, so next week we're going to have the school committee, not the school committee, the school department, Peter Schaefer or Ms. Michelle come and speak regarding the school department's capital needs. And then also Joe Lapointe from the water department will be coming to speak on the water department's capital needs. Is everyone on the committee okay with meeting next week, March 18th at 7 p.m.?
Yep.
Scott offered it. Do you want to do it did we want to do that in person, or considering we're meeting with all these departments, we've all done it via Zoom, and then perhaps caucus in person?
We'll do it that way. That makes sense.
That might be your best bet.
All right. So our next meeting is set for, let me make sure I got it right, March 18th at 7 p.m. Thursday. I just want to make sure I repeat it right. Next Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And then after that, we get into a whole other business. So with that being said, I'll hear any motions to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Excellent. Beautiful. Steve makes the motion. Marty makes the second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Beautiful. Carried unanimously. All right. So at the time being 8:11 on March 11th, 2021, I call the Capital Planning Committee adjourn. Capital Planning Committee
Aye, all.
meeting adjourn. Thank you.
We got you.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Good night.
Good.